States is Israel's largest trading partner, so Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will likely try to negotiate a deal with President Trump today after he imposed a 17% tariff on Israel. Netanyahu saying, "I can tell you that I am the first international leader, the first foreign leader who will meet with President Trump on the issue, which is so important to the Israeli economy." Netanyahu's meeting with the president today comes after he met with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer over the weekend. The prime minister's office called the meeting warm, friendly, and productive. Tariffs won't be the only issue the president and Netanyahu are expected to talk about today. They're also expected to cover the hostages, Gaza, Israel-Turkey relations, and Iran.
There's a lot of things going on with the Middle East right now that have to be silenced. You know, we had no problem with the Middle East. Everything was done. We had no problem with Iran. We had no problem with anybody. And then you had October 7th.
Israel is just one of many countries the White House says is looking to strike a deal on tariffs. National Economic Council Chair Kevin Hassett says more than 50 countries have reached out to the president to try and reach an agreement.
I love that one. I mean, it's an oldie but a goodie, and Klaus Schwab has resigned. Do you know this? Do you know that Klaus Schwab very quietly last week left the World Economic Forum? Do you know that the World Economic Forum is now completely atomized? That they're done. The WF they're done. They're finished. That globalism is dead, and that we're creating a new world. And are you not excited for that? Are you a panic publican? Are you somebody who's going to get so obsessed with some small short-term pain that you can't see the long-term gains? Well, then you're a weak person. And you better lock in and understand exactly what's happening right now as we remake the world. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a pep in our step, a chip on our shoulder, and a stiff upper lip as we face down some of the most evil forces that mankind has ever known, and we will be victorious. In fact, we already have major victories. Let's freaking go. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2025. 50 different nations have already come, hat in hand, groveling on their knees to President Trump to ask for forgiveness and to fix their economies to align with American greatness. This is something, of course, that you can do when you are the world's foremost empire that are run by people who actually care about this place. We're going to talk a lot about that today on the show. Globalists are in complete and total panic. All of the right people are upset. Trump is eating the rich. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a lot about that with Bataya Ungar-Sargon on the program, along with Ben Berkwam on the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Probably a good time to buy gold. I'm glad I did. Probably a good time to buy gold. Gold is ripping right now. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, can't say we didn't warn you, right? Like, at the very least, we try our hand at making sure that you are informed. This is our promise to you, that we will inform as best that we can. This is a moment where it is critical to ensure that your wealth gets preserved and protected. Now, obviously, we are not a panic publican, right? A new word that we're going to make on this program. But, you know, you should also diversify into something other than meme coins on crypto exchanges or stock market. Don't have all your eggs in one basket, right? This is for me as I invest in gold. Record high gold prices right now, over 3,000. Central banks worldwide increasing their gold reserves. It's all a good thing, ladies and gentlemen, because gold is a fixed asset. It's something that has created wealth throughout the ages, and it can create wealth for you too, especially in rocky economic times, and there certainly will be plenty of that. Interested in learning more? Text Benny to 85545 now, and they'll send you a free gold investment guide. Plus, You could qualify for $1,000 in free silver with a qualifying purchase. Remember, helping secure your financial future starts with making informed decisions today. Text Benny to 85545. Data and message rates may apply. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial professional. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go into the top of the news cycle here. There was a massive spike in the markets just seconds ago. It was a monster green candle on the fake news that President Trump would be giving up on his tariffs plan. Now, that fake news was put down very quickly by the White House. There it is. Thank you. Pop that up. Thank you. Put down very quickly by the White House, saying, no, we're not going to give up on our tariffs plan. We're going to stick with the plan. You know, this guy who's president right now, who won in a massive populist landslide, has been promising to create tariff barriers to our nation to stop us from being ripped off for not 10 years, for not the campaign cycle, right? I say 10 years because Trump's been running for political office for about 10 years, right? 2016. 2015, President Trump announces he enters the political arena officially as a candidate. He'd never done that before. That's when typically these politicians start making promises, and then they get into office, they immediately take massive checks, and they walk away from every promise. No. President Trump has been making these promises for 10 years. He has been making these promises for 20 years. He has been promising to make America great by re-onshoring our wealth for 30 years. No, President Trump's been making these promises for, at the very least, 50 years, as far as we can tell, if you go back to the actual tape. This is a man who's said this for decades and has been of sound mind and policy when it comes to protecting American treasure. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that actually means on this program. So we've done a boatload of research this weekend, and I feel like we really have a bit of a grasp on what's going on here. And I want to begin by saying Donald Trump is the same man that he always was, except for right now, he has surrounded himself with the white hats. Donald Trump is in league with Scott Bessent, who is a genius inside of the Treasury. He's our Treasury Secretary. And with a number of other core advisors economically around him, who are self-made billionaires or hundreds of millionaires who have been studying the markets for longer than most of us have been alive, and who understand something of absolute critical essence, which is that if given the opportunity, the vassal states of an empire will always take advantage of the core player, the leader of the empire, until the system collapses. Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, worked with George Soros. Now, normally I'd say, wow, that's a very bad thing. He worked at the Soros Asset Management Fund. He's somebody who personally risked out, he was the risk manager, collapsing the British pound because their markets were overleveraged, they were too much in debt, and their currency was overvalued. And he succeeded in betting against the British Empire, an empire that was on its very last leg, an empire that, of course, sprung America, an empire that's hundreds of years older than our country, thousands of years old, but like the Empire State of Europe and the Empire State of England, was on its last legs. And our current Treasury Secretary was able to take massive advantage of the structural inefficiencies and vulnerabilities inside of England. This man is so sharp in understanding how to protect against the pariahs, the piranhas, the people who are going to do that to America if given the opportunity, because they'll make a fortune. This is how it works. Donald Trump is surrounded by some really unbelievably smart people right now. And we've taken our time and due diligence this weekend to really study what's going on. We're pretty excited about it. And we believe that there is moments when there are years when nothing happens. And there are weeks when decades happen and the world changes. And we're living through that. And there's going to be some uncertainty. There's going to be some short-term pain. But it's going to end up saving our country. And we believe that in our very heart and soul. And so we are not a panic publican, a panican, right? If you want to like use the terminology here. We are somebody who's going to trust the plan. We're also a show that's going to look at the data and look at what's being done and why. And we're going to do our best to explain it. And before we jump into some of these Trump flashbacks, I want to like establish a metaphor that we didn't get to fully develop on Friday's show. All of this stuff was quite new on Friday. Our house, our proverbial home here in America, you probably have one, and I have a home. I pay mortgage on my house. I like my mortgage rate. I bought in 2021. Most people don't like their mortgage rates. Things are wildly out of balance in this country. Homes are too expensive. The price of the dollar is totally inflated. It's overpriced. It's over-indexed. It's too expensive to make things here. We are slowly but surely losing the American dream for a new generation of young Americans who won't have an opportunity that their parents had. Something has to change. Something has to break. System needs to be reset. And the criminal decisions that were made by globalist leaders of this nation to strip mine American treasure and give it to the third world for the improvement of portfolios for the top elite 1% in this country. That system's coming down. Trump is eating the rich right now. Think of our nation as a home. We have a mortgage on this house. It's called our national debt. We can't pay that mortgage. It's at a rate that we could never sustainably pay ever. Not only that, not only is our home, can we not afford the home that we're living in, and are the rates that are being leveraged against us to just service the interest on our mortgage so high that it would bankrupt any generation. Again, this is our home. We're trying to raise the next generation here. But our neighbors, who are total assholes, are taking from us. They're like stealing from us. They're taking a fence post. They're grabbing a light bulb. They're ripping off a door handle. They're smashing a window. They're attacking our home. It's unfair. They're stealing from us and then are putting that light bulb into their house. Attaching that doorknob to their front door. What kind of a father would you be if you allowed your home to be invaded and raided like that? This is where you're raising your children. What kind of a leader of that household would you be? If you didn't say and sit your entire household down and say, we can't afford this place. Something's totally out of whack. We're getting attacked by everyone in the neighborhood because we have the biggest house and because we have the worst security for our home. And because the people who've run this home throughout the last 70 years have decided to prioritize every other home in the neighborhood except for ours. Trump is the head of the household. He's the chief executive. Vested in him is the powers of the entire federal government. The vesting clause gives President Trump awesome and plenary power to make these decisions, and especially on tariffs as well. It's there, right there in the Constitution. In order to bring leverage and protect our home. Think of President Trump as dad in a rocking chair with a shotgun in his lap on your front porch with the bug zapper clicking behind him. And anybody who tries to steal a shingle from the house is going to get blasted. This is the new way that the house is being managed. No longer will this house be like given away to thieves. Not only that, but President Trump, not only the man with a shotgun on the front porch, stopping thieves from robbing our house, since we're raising our children here, it's important, but also President Trump is decided that he's going to go walk on down to the bank and he's going to renegotiate our mortgage. He's going to renegotiate the terms upon which we own this house. And we're going to get a much better deal for that. We're going to put up a fence. Not only a digital fence with the bank getting a better rate on what we owe on this house, but also a physical fence. Those physical fences are tariffs. And that's going to stop the wholesale ripping off of this place we all call home. This is the best metaphor that I can come up with. I'm not an economics major. I don't pretend to have some type of Harvard Ivy League education in macro or micros. But we are in control of one superpower on this program, and it's pattern recognition. And we've noticed a pattern here, which is that every single other nation on this effing planet has tariffs on America. There's actually no such thing as a zero tariffed country that doesn't take advantage of our nation in some way. Some countries are egregious. It's just straight up criminal what they do to American products. So someone's going to have to explain to me how it's okay for every other country, every other home in the neighborhood, let's just say, homes around the block, to have fences and walls to prevent us from stealing them, their doorknobs, light bulbs, fence posts. But we can't have that. Somebody explain that to me. Why can't we have tariffs? Every other nation. So was it okay with every other nation doing it to us? But now the tariff tards, as we shall call them, the panic publicans and the tariff tards, who are far more interested, and it is immoral, by the way. There are many scriptures about it. It's totally immoral. Who are so concerned about a 1 or 2 point drop in the stock market. Put up the stock market, please. I want the post that I sent about the last 75 years of the stock market. Ladies and gentlemen, such a privileged and entitled and cursed generation that would give their children scorpions and snakes instead of the bread and water when they ask for it. Thank you. Go. Here we go. Let's put this in perspective. Click. Okay. This is 75 years of the stock market. Stock market goes up. The stock market goes down. It's been like that since the advent of modern markets back in the 1600s, when the Dutch had the first stock market. It's always happened this way. The world gets reset and changed. Sometimes the people who are in control of these markets actually panic, collapse the markets on purpose, which is what's happening right now, because Trump is eating the rich and doing exactly what he promised. And here is your panic. Here's your moment right here. There's where we are. This is the last 75 years. This is going back to the 1950s. So here's my question for somebody who may be older, who may be stressed out about this. Were you stressed out on all these other red lines? Like, when did you decide to change your party? When did your balls fall off? How about that? How weak are you? And how immoral are you that you just don't care about the future of your children and your children being slaves to communists? Because if we don't start making things here, if we don't start creating a defensive barrier for our home, we won't have a home. If we don't start learning how to build and manufacture in this country again, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's an electronic, whether it's large steel that moves the earth, right? You have to be able to build drones, your own drones for military use. You have to be able to build your own aircraft carriers to patrol the world. If we don't learn, if we don't incentivize doing things in America again, then there won't be a future. The drone wars alone. I mean, have you seen these things? The drone wars alone, learning how to manufacture a drone, that alone will doom our next generation, my children. Countries that don't have this technology, that don't have the manufacturing capacity, will not seize the future. And it has been a truism throughout all time. It proves who is the victor in wars, and it proves who is the victor economically. And for some reason, and we know exactly why, our globalist leaders decided to give that up willingly. They decided to do this in an agreement called the Bretton Woods Agreement. This agreement, which was created by sort of the original globalists after World War II, said that any country that decides not to join the communists, effectively, that is not a communist country, so on its face, you can go back and say, well, maybe this is a good thing. That's fine, but it's not a thing for our modern era. But anyway, you can say maybe it's a good thing. Any country that doesn't decide to join a bloc with the communists can have open trade with America. And also you'll get military defense for your shipping lanes. American military will police your shipping lanes. There is an option that America could put bases, military bases in your country. But either way, under this Bretton Woods Agreement, you're going to have access to the American market for free. You can tariff the hell out of our products, but you'll get access to our markets and you'll be able to sell and you'll be able to compete with us. And there were actually blocks put in order to facilitate artificially European markets and bring them back after the war. This is the Bretton Woods Agreement. This agreement stood for 50 years and then was kind of remade in this New World Order globalism that hyper-accelerated under the Bushes. Of course, the Bushes made all of their money off of international oil sales. So they were incentivized to effectively open American markets even further and to bring in people who were in the communist diaspora, right? Like China. China would have never been a part of the Bretton Woods Agreement because it's a communist nation, right? You're not allowed. You're not allowed in. Then they decided to blow the doors off after the Cold War and say, yeah, even communist nations can come in. They opened up China with zero tariffs and a labor costs that were pennies, fractions of pennies on the dollar to American labor costs. And then they incentivized companies to move to China and out of America. I can't explain something that's more evil than that for what's happened to our economy over the last 30 years. They actually penalized companies for making products here with high valuation of the dollar, high labor costs, and with zero tariffs. Even when tariffs were put on China just moved their manufacturing or assembly to Canada and Mexico. And then the NAFTA agreement, they could just ship in products without any tariffs. Every other country in the world has a tariff on America. We didn't start the tariff war. Trump sure as hell is going to end it. That's what's going on. So, no crying in the casino. You don't lose anything unless you sell. And we went back and looked at the last 7 stock market crashes going back to the 1970s. Something that's considered a stock market crash, a total correction, a drop of 10% or more. Every single market crash was followed by a correction within 16 months. There's one exception to that in the 80s. It took about 2 years. Every single market crash was followed by a correction of more than the value of the market prior to the crash. 16 months or less. Sometimes 8 months, sometimes 4. I have zero respect for you. If you're somebody who looks at this graph right here, if you're somebody who looks at the table as it's set and looks at how unfair everything is for our country around the world, and you say, well, me, and you're a panic publican. You panic and you wail and you cry because the market's dipped a little bit. What do you, like, who are you? Like, what, you know, it's one thing with the libs. The libs are their own hilarious parody of themselves. Right? Down with the system, down with the system, down with the man. The market dipped 2 points. Oh, my hedge fund, my portfolio. Down with Wall Street, down with Wall Street. They're beyond. They're done. I don't have anything for the libs. Okay? It's hilarious. They're now raging on behalf of the machine so hard. These old boomers that you saw marching, talking about how it's like the 60s again. Yeah, except for you are literally protesting on behalf of the man. You're protesting on behalf of Wall Street, on behalf of globalism. You're raging for the machine. No, man. I'm talking about something that's totally new. President Trump is resetting the world. It's exciting. It's generational. It's something that you should enjoy the ride. And these are sort of these are the realities. Now, you can go down into just like one more structural level down, which is U.S. Treasuries. U.S. Treasuries are too expensive. The yields on them are too high, and the dollar is overvalued against these other currencies. President Trump making those treasuries a far more accessible vehicle for investing in the American market. So if people are going to be moving into the market, they're going to be moving into U.S. Treasuries. As other stock markets around the world collapse, people will rush into the treasuries. Lowering that yield rate lowers the rate and the cost of money. That lowers the price of oil, which has collapsed. Put that chart up, please, if we don't already have it. Lowers the price of, collapses the price of oil, collapses the price of commodities, collapses our own mortgage rates here in the United States so that young people can start buying houses again. And oh, by the way, that gives us an opportunity, like a historic opportunity, and this is what Bessett's actually going for, to renegotiate the interest rates on our national debt, saving our country trillions, actually. So we have $38 trillion debt. Hot damn. Look at this. Probably a good time to refill the strategic petroleum reserves, right? Yeah, that's right. This is how you do open heart surgery on a very sick patient. And final thing I'll say on this before we jump into a bunch of clips and a bunch of news is the acceleration of this current system, the trajectory we were on, has a 100% chance of failing. $100 trillion debts, $400 trillion debt, a quadrillion dollars. Like at what point, right, do you actually just cease to have a currency? Hyperinflation, total collapse, and slavery to communists. That's what we were. That's where we were going. That's where our nation was headed. The inability to manufacture anything, the inability to create anything, any military weapon, any pharmaceutical, just totally dependent, subservient, sick man, sick old empire. Exactly where the UK found itself when George Soros took advantage of their vulnerabilities and collapsed their economy. It's exactly where we were. The guy who worked with George Soros to do that is now Trump's Treasury Secretary. And he is doing this surgery to defend against that catastrophic event. 100% chance of failure on the current trajectory, 70% chance of success with what President Trump's doing. I think you can pin this, right? After watching the market volatility this morning, I'm telling you, dude, people are going to rush into the American market. The American markets are going to be so strong. They're going to be roaring. Trump knows this. What do you think Trump, do you think Trump's dumb? Trump knows that if the economy is completely collapsed by the midterms, that Democrats will take over the House. They will impeach him, maybe the Senate. They'll impeach him nonstop. Every week they'll impeach Trump. And then after he's out of office, and let's say they were able to win back the White House, God forbid, in 2028, then they'll throw Trump in prison for the rest of his life. The old firing squad. I mean, trust me, like you've seen what these rabid animals will do. It's total demon energy. They'll just, they will go finish the job, right, that they started in Butler. That's what they're going to do. There's nobody who has more of a stake in the game than President Trump. He has the highest chip count on the table. Nobody who's more incentivized to make this work and to do it right than the president. Not you, not some billionaire hedge fund manager, no one. You think he's going to be reckless with this? He's been planning this. He's been planning this for his entire life. 1987. 1987. Let's listen to Donald Trump. You tell me. You upset with the guy who's been telling you what's wrong with this country for decades? You're going to blackpill? Because this man's for once in your entire, all of our miserable lives here as Republicans, we get, and as Americans, we finally get a politician that tells us what they're going to do and then does it honestly and transparently? No. We're not going to blackpill over this. President Trump, 1987, go.
Well, it was very easy. I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity and the leaders. I mean, what we have a Persian Gulf situation. You saw what happened today. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on getting oil for Japan, and they're not paying anything for it. Essentially, they're paying nothing for it. We have tankers going back and forth that our men are protecting, losing their lives. I mean, they're losing their lives, Larry. We're spending billions and billions on protection, and those tankers are going over to Japan. It's just preposterous. I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster, the Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are. He's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting? We have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money. I think it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And they leverage the American middle class for their globalist ends. And their goal is not a better life for you or me. If that were the case, then our potholes would be filled, and our health care would be cheap, and our oil would be free. It's like, we have enough oil to make the gas price 50 cents a gallon. But they don't want that for you. They want control of the earth. They've never considered themselves your countrymen. What I mean by that is the leaders who brought us the New World Order, as George H.W. Bush continued to call it from the White House. These people that opened up China and gave them access to the World Trade Organization. They gave these golden tickets to our enemies. These people are traitors. I think they should be tried. President Trump, in 2012, what's he going to do to China? Let's listen.
And somebody said, well, what would you do? What can you do? So easy. I'd drop a 25% tax on China. And I said to somebody that it's really the messenger. The messenger is important. I could have one man say, we're going to tax you 25%. And I could say another, listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
And that's what he's saying. President Trump, following through on his promises, and you should enjoy and appreciate this moment. President Trump, on Truth Social. Here we go. The United States has a chance to do something that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panickin. A new party based on weak, stupid people. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has 50 new nations coming and begging for deals with the United States. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick reveals 50 nations reached out to negotiate tariffs. There is no postponing. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says 50 nations have now reached out to the United States to discuss President Trump's sweeping tariffs, though he said that nothing will stop the levies from going forward. Defending the president's economic plan on Sunday, Lutnick calls for the foreign officials to prove that these countries know that they've been ripping us off, suggesting that there is no room for negotiations. There's no postponing, he told CBS Face the Nation. They are definitely going to stay in place for days and potentially for weeks. This is leverage. This is the art of the deal. This is resetting the table, and this is right. These countries started the war, not us. President Trump's damn well going to finish it. The tariffs are coming, Lutnick added. He wasn't kidding. The tariffs are coming, and of course they are. Lutnick did not respond specifically to which countries have reached out. Well, we know now. European Union has. European Union said, oh, we're going to make sure that America pays for these tariffs. Oh, we're going to do retaliatory and reciprocal tariffs. We're going to crush them. Lo and behold, at time of show, here's Ursula von der Leyen saying, actually, we give up. You win. Go.
Are you concerned that Trump might be elected again shortly?
I think it's very likely. And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow.
My apologies. Here we go.
We stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests.
We're looking for 0 for 0 tariffs now. We should look at that. We should go ahead and look at what the Taiwanese say this morning. I'm just cherry picking a couple of people, but here we go. Taiwan does not seek retaliatory tariffs against the United States. We'll start by taking bilateral 0 tariffs to ensure that Taiwan's competitiveness. We will increase U.S. imports and adopt other measures. Working together, we will usher in a golden age of shared prosperity. The leaders of Japan have sent an entire working delegation to the Treasury Department. According to my sources, they've entered the Treasury Department and are there trying to work on a deal to set the playing field even. And President Trump isn't interested in even. He's actually looking for some recompense from these nations. It's very interesting. The way that the Trump administration, if you really dive into how the Trump administration views this, they view these countries as having taken full advantage of our nation, specifically our nation's military. Because it's our nation's military, of course, which we pay for. There's not a single country on earth that pays for our military other than the American taxpayer. Our military provides the protection for free markets and open shipping lanes. At what? The expense of us, the American taxpayer. Not only is it us, it's dual insult. Not only is it us having our manufacturing jobs ripped away, having our cost of living skyrocket and spiral completely out of control, we have to pay for the military to facilitate the open markets for these other nations that then tariff us back so that our auto manufacturers can't sell vehicles in their countries. The Trump administration is going to seek, and we've checked on this, and it is true, going to seek to have these countries pay for their military protection. There's going to be a total new remaking of the globe. It's going to be very exciting. These people are going to actually enrich America, and there's going to be no way out. And you're blackpilling because of a couple points drop in a portfolio that you can't even access for 20 years, or even if you can access it, you don't lose any money unless you take it out. Please. No crying in the casino. Calm down. Calm down. This was promised to us. Yuval Harari, I would argue probably one of the most evil men on earth. You just have to look into the work that he's done at the World Economic Forum, which is in total and complete collapse. And he predicted that it would be in total collapse with President Trump's victory. President Trump making good on his promises. And World Economic Forum top advisor Yuval Harari predicting with chilling accuracy here what will happen to globalists if President Trump is elected again.
Are you concerned that Trump might be elected again shortly?
I think it's very likely. And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow to what remains of the global order. And he says it openly. Now, again, it should be clear that many of these politicians, they present a false dichotomy, a false binary vision of the world, as if you have to choose between patriotism and globalism, between being loyal to your nation and being loyal to some kind of, I don't know, global government or whatever.
The global government that you're trying to create is like, yes, that's exactly right. Like, stop saying this sarcastically. This is precisely what you guys are doing. He says this will be the end, the death blow to globalism. And it is. There's news today that Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is going to be announcing the end of globalism for the UK, which will be quite remarkable. Maybe he looked at the knife crime statistics in London. Maybe he's looked at the rape gangs all across the UK. But either way, the UK, which also has, ironically, as an island, a massive problem with open borders, is going to have its left-wing leader say the end of globalism is nigh. It's a pretty exciting moment if you actually see the chess pieces that are being moved about and the opportunities when you have a leader that cares about the nation that he leads, that actually views us as his countrymen, and that understands who our true enemies are. Victor Davis Hanson on who our actual enemies are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go.
China has prohibitive tariffs. So does Vietnam. So does Mexico. So does Europe. So do a lot of countries. So does India. But if tariffs are so destructive of their economies, why is China booming? How did India become an economic powerhouse when it has these exorbitant tariffs on American imports? How did Vietnam, of all places, become such a different country, even though it has these prohibitive tariffs? Why isn't Germany, before its energy problems, why wasn't it a wreck? It's got tariffs on almost everything that we send them. How is the EU even functioning with these tariffs? I thought tariffs destroyed an economy, but they seem to like them. And they're angry that they're no longer asymmetrical. Apparently, our people who are tariffing us think tariffs improve their economy. Maybe they're right. I don't know. The second thing is, why would you get angry at the person who is reacting to the asymmetrical tariff and not the people who inaugurated the tariff? Why is Canada mad at us when it's running a $63 billion surplus and it has tariffs on some American products at 250%? Doesn't it seem like the people who started this asymmetrical, if I could use the word trade war, should be the culpable people, not the people who are reluctantly reacting to it?
We didn't start the war. Trump's going to finish the war. They've been taking advantage of our country because of weak leaders. Globalism has now failed. And we have a man in charge who is doing what he said he's going to do for the better part of the last 50 years. Back to the earliest possible Trump interviews, we hear him talking about this. And now he has the opportunity to do it. And according to reports, Donald Trump has 0 more Fs to give. It's an actual quote from the White House. So, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who has 0 Fs to give, very excited to have as a guest on the program, somebody who's gone viral over the last news cycle, of this tariff news cycle that started over the last few days. For this clip, I'm going to play it in its totality because it's profound, and I want to build off of it. But Batya, you may know her from Tucker's show. You may know her from Bill Maher. She's a profound thinker and somebody who's able to actually, a journalist who's actually able to see who the betrayed Americans are in this nation. And she speaks for them, which is actually one of the bravest acts in media. This clip went viral for a reason. I'm sure you'll understand.
We all agree that it is deeply unfair for the American middle class to be bearing the burden of unfair tariffs from other countries. We all agree that it is great for the president to have leverage in order to demand reasonable things, like that countries stop allowing fentanyl to murder 100,000 Americans every year, and that Mexico do its part to police its own border. And yet when somebody has the courage to show up and say to Wall Street, screw you, I am waging war. I'm waging class warfare on behalf of the American working class. And you elites in Wall Street, you do what you need to do because I'm not going to stop fighting for the American working class. Suddenly, everybody is sitting around going, oh no, the stock market. Yeah, the stock market looks like that because the rich are punishing Trump for siding with the neglected and humiliated American working class over them. We have already seen these tariffs work, Pierce. The number of people crossing the southern border is at 0. Fentanyl is at record lows for the last 10 years. We have already seen $1.2 trillion in manufacturing invested in this country since January 21st.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, live, Batya Ungar-Saigon. Batya, it's an honor to have you on the program. I've been a fan of your work for a long time, and this is a really special moment where we've actually watched the left side with the fat cat capitalists on Wall Street and the banks. Really, it's a perfect inversion from Occupy Wall Street. It's remarkable to see. It must be so repulsive to be these people. And it's got to be really great to finally be, it's great to be on the side of the working class in America. It feels good, actually.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of yours as well. It's really great to be here with you and your audience. This is what's so amazing to me is if you watch liberal media right now, if you listen to Democrats, if you watch how they're talking about this, they can't admit what's happening, right? They have no theory of mind as to why Trump is doing that. Have you noticed that? Because there is only one reason to be doing this, and it is to side with the working class against the fat cats on Wall Street who think that it is the job of the president to kowtow to them because for 60 years, American presidents on both sides have kowtowed to them. And for once, there's a president standing up and saying, actually, I work for the American people. Actually, I'm going to side with the American working class against the entire international economic global order. And what he's doing is what the left is supposed to be doing, what it pretends it's doing, what it pretends it stands for. And so they literally cannot admit why this is happening because there is only one explanation for it. And so, yes, you're right. It is glorious to be on the other side defending this. And honestly, it might not work. You know what I mean? We don't have a crystal ball, right? We don't know what's in the future, but I will defend this till the day I die just for the bravery and the courage and the honor of doing what President Trump did.
There's so many Americans that just walk through the aisles of their grocery stores, that look at their mortgages and see the pothole in front of their streets, and they go, I've been left behind. Mm-hmm. You know, our leaders, we apparently have the richest, most powerful nation on earth, and there are Vietnamese peasants that live better than me. And there are people in China that have pristine streets. and have drone deliveries and flying cars. And we've been the tax cattle for the establishment of much better lives for third world dictatorships that hate us. And that's like absolutely effing immoral and wrong. And I think that there's this great I'm very happy to be on that side. You're right. I'm very happy to be on that side. Nothing's assured in life, but I am certain that that is the moral side to be on.
Yeah, there's something like really horrifying that happened, which is that our economy over the last 60 years was an upward transfer of wealth from the hardest working Americans in the heartland into the pockets of the top 10%, the over-credentialed college elites in the knowledge industry and in the professions, who now control over 60% of the GDP. And it's so funny because they love to rail against the billionaires. But actually, it's them who have been the beneficiaries of the open border, because it is they who employ people in these jobs that they imported millions and millions of illegal immigrants to do, and they who are consuming the cheap crap from China. And so we had this upward transfer of wealth. You know, in the 70s, the largest share of the wealth in this country was in the middle class. And that was a direct result of the fact that 25% of our GDP was in manufacturing. Manufacturing pays an average of $100,000 a year today. That is a solidly middle-class wage that can ensure a working-class person the American dream. And today, the largest share of our economy, 20% of our economy, is in finance and real estate, meaning Wall Street, which is why Wall Street is now backing the Democrats, because they are in collusion with that top 10%. These are asset-rich Americans who have been the beneficiaries of this upward funnel of wealth that was put in place by things like NAFTA, or when President Obama defunded vocational training, meaning another avenue to the middle class for people who work with their hands for a living was shut off, or when Joe Biden opened the border and we imported 15 million people to compete with working class people in construction, right? So all of this put money in the pockets of the elites, which is, of course, why Wall Street is trying to collapse the economy. They are trying to short President Trump's agenda. They are betting against Trump and against the working class and betting for China that China is going to win. It is so disgusting. I mean, we do not hate these people enough. They love a situation in which our greatest adversary was able to export a pandemic, and then we literally relied on them for the pharmaceuticals and the protective gear to protect ourselves, where our greatest adversary is literally the only people left making the very ships we would need if it came to it to fight them, where they control the exact place where every semiconductor now comes from. They love that. That is Wall Street's bread and butter. They got rich off of that, and they are betting that Trump is going to fail. And we just have to hold that line, Benny. Hold the line.
There's a large port here in Tampa where we broadcast from and where I live. And the shipbuilders at that port are my neighbors. And they tell me that we can't build ships anymore. That we actually lost the institutional knowledge, but more importantly, there's regulation strangulation in this country. And there's too much sand in the gears. That it's just impossible for us. If we were having to build a ship from scratch, like it was World War II, that we can't, right? And that seems like a massive security issue for this nation.
Absolutely. And you bring up regulation. This is a really important point that's been lost on people. You know, President Trump has done these amazing things for the working class that working class people voted for. He controlled the border immediately. And what that does is it limits the supply of labor, which allows every working class American to ask for more money from the corporations that they work for, because they can't immediately be replaced by an illegal immigrant. He then imposed these tariffs, which of course stops that race to the bottom in terms of wages, and says the product of the labor of the working class is going to be competitive again in the global marketplace. This is amazing stuff. But this is only half of Trump's economic agenda. He is pairing this with massive deregulation, with tax cuts, with lowering the corporate taxes for any corporation that reshores manufacturing from the low that he instituted of 21% to 15%. And of course, drill, baby, drill. This is all like massive pro-business goodies. And this stuff is meant to create, I've never seen this before, because usually if you have a government whose economy is pro-working class, they're kind of socialists, you know, they hate the rich. It's like soak the rich, they hate business. It's very anti-business, right? What Trump is doing is amazing, is he's saying, I'm going to couple these protectionist measures that protect the dignity and the value of the American worker, and I'm going to pair it with all of these goodies for the pro-business community, for the business community, for business leaders to enhance and encourage them to want to invest. It's not just a stick, it's also the carrot. And instead of saying, wow, this guy is like actually teaching us how we can get rich off of a deeply patriotic agenda in which there are no losers, there's only winners, they're trying to short the agenda. They're betting in the futures markets that he's going to fail because they absolutely hate this country and they hate the American working class.
Can you speak to the sort of repulsive, not just on the uber rich, but also on people who are just fetishized looking at their 401ks every single day? You know, Warren Buffett, no crying in the casino, right? Like most people shouldn't own stocks. There are a lot of people who just don't have the temerity to own the stocks, right? And I got a buddy who like sold everything in the crash of 2020, and it's like, dude, the market was back up like in 16 months. Like everything was above, back up, and you lose millions of dollars doing this. It's so dumb, and I just don't think that, like, I think maybe it's like people just don't have the brass for it. But the point is that I see the trade-off. It's completely worth it, actually, if you're able to have a functional and prosperous country for my children. I will gladly pay more for an iPhone today for that. That is the easiest. I have too much plastic crap. I don't need more of it. We were a much happier country without all of it, and a much more moral, I think, and better nation 60 years ago before any of this. And I think that there's such short-term thinking. You keep going back to this, right? Give me your best argument, like against that doomerism, please.
It's so amazing because do you remember during the pandemic when like the left was calling the right grandma killers and being like, these people won't even sacrifice going to church and visiting their grandparents, like actually things that shouldn't be sacrificed. I don't know if you saw this, but that astronaut who was stuck in space, he went to church services every single week on Sunday. He attended church. If he can do it, we can do it. Yes. But basically they were calling the right selfish. They always have. We're the compassionate side. We're the sacrificers. We're the ones whose heart beats, you know, for the little guy and what have you, right? This is sort of like how the left talks about the right. It turns out that it's the right who's willing to say, you know what? I got rich, but it meant that my neighbor can't afford a home and will never be able to afford a home and will never be able to afford to retire. I got rich. I got a huge 401k, but the guy who delivers my Amazon deliveries, the truck driver who brings my food to my house, will never be able to retire. When they're breaking broken bodies, which they spent their whole lives working in service to us, when they break down, they will be poor, that they will never have a fraction of the security we have, right? Suddenly it turns out that they were totally comfortable with this disgusting, despicable inequality in which the most hardworking Americans couldn't afford the most modest version of the American dream. And suddenly when somebody tries to write that, that's what the tariffs are about, ensuring that working class people can become homeowners and can retire in dignity. Suddenly they can't, they're looking at their 401ks. Oh no, I can't, I refuse to sacrifice even, whatever it is. They're still going to be fine, all these people. Like not one of these people is not going to be rich, even if this goes as poorly as possible. And they won't sacrifice a dime for the stability of their neighbors. And meanwhile, it's conservatives who are saying, I'm just not going to look because it's not about me. We have a country to save. We have a nation to save. We have neighbors. We owe something to our fellow Americans, for God's sake. If you are rich, you owe something. What happened to that? There used to be this concept of noblesse oblige. If you were fortunate enough that God made you rich, You know, you built a hospital, if only so the peasants didn't revolt, you know, like you invested in the community, you built schools, you know, you made sure that the people around you could live in dignity. And we just totally lost that because the rich today think they earned it. They are godless people. They're not people of faith. They're not religious, and they're educated. They go to these fancy universities that their parents pay $400,000 for. They study for their tests. And so they believe they deserve it. They believe they earned it. You know, in the Bible, it says, Kochi va'otzem yadi asuli esachayil hazeh, which means like my strength and my power brought me all of this success. No, it didn't. You live in the greatest country on earth. Like somebody else paid that, you know, somebody else paid for the fact that if you're a college professor, you're now making $250,000 a year instead of 60 like you used to in the 70s. And instead of acknowledging that, they developed all of this language around, you know, toxic masculinity, right? When did that come around, that idea? That idea started in the 90s, exactly around the time they started shipping jobs that required brawn for a living, that gave men a sense of purpose, that gave them a sense of being a provider, started shipping those jobs overseas to build up China and Mexico's middle class. And suddenly you were a toxic man if you objected, you know, or the idea that having a national border is racist. This idea developed exactly around the time that they sort of decided we're not going to criminalize illegal border crossing anymore. Everybody come in. You know, Joe Biden, let's be real, he partnered with the cartels as a jobs program to fill jobs in corporations who didn't want to pay Americans a living wage. I mean, this is really dark stuff. So I would say to people looking at their 401ks, like really, like you made so much money. You are so rich, and you are begrudging this president for saying, actually, what if we shared just a fraction of that prosperity with your neighbors who, by the way, work much harder than you do?
Here's the market. We loved this. 75 years of the market. And this is what people are panicking over. I really like, especially if you're a boomer. Especially if you're a boomer and you've had the lavish, absorbent luxury of investing in this market. Up, please. Thank you. Right there. That's 75 years. This is like median age for the boomers right now. This has been your market through your life. And that little dip is causing you to say, I'm done with the Republican Party. What psychosis is that, Batya? Like what
Well, I mean, the thing you have to remember is that there are a lot of people in the Republican Party who are not very happy with Donald Trump at all, right? If you think of the donor class of the Republican Party, these guys lined up behind Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis. They didn't want Trump to come back, right? I mean, the rhino version of the party, the kind of country club, free trade, you know, trickle down, all this stuff, like it was very anti-working class. In fact, if you interview working class people, which I did for my book, Second Class, you know, there's sort of one thing that working class conservatives like used to hate even more than they hated the Democratic Party. And it was the Republican Party before Trump, because they felt like they had been sort of pimped out, right? Like they were stuck with them because they didn't support 9th-month abortions and like trans people beating up women in women's sports. They kind of stuck with them, but they didn't have for a second think that they represented their economic interests, right? The Democrats obviously didn't either, but you know, so there's a lot of energy on the right, I think, to return to the sort of pre-Trump version of the party. And it is very dangerous because like, will the post-Trump leadership understand how Trump managed to win the working class from the Democrats? It's very important that be, and I'm not quite sure that lesson has been learned from the sort of rhino wing, which thinks that as soon as Trump is gone, they're going to go back to catering to Wall Street. So
I want to put the book up here. It's everybody needs to go get Second Class: How the Elites Betrayed America. And very few people. A lot of people opining on this. It's amazing. All of the double masking experts have suddenly become tariff experts. All the black square experts, or the egg price. My favorite are the egg price experts. They've immediately become tariff experts. They go from posting the black square to double masking to social distancing to tariffs, to
To
egg
free
prices.
trade.
There you go. It's quite a degree. Please let me know where you can get it. Definitely the America University of the Bahamas. But here we go. How the elites betrayed America's working men and women. This has got to be joyous for you. It's why you're going so viral right now. That clip that you had on Piers Morgan is like, that was thermonuclear. Please explain, since you wrote the book on it, the best case scenario for what President Trump is doing right now. Where will we be in a year or two?
Well, I can tell you where we are today. He's already attracted $1.2 trillion in manufacturing back to this country. So, already that, like, he started from day one. I mean, that first meeting he took in the Oval Office, I think maybe it was at the day after the inauguration, he hit the ground running. And so we're going to have a lot more manufacturing here. We're going to be weaned of our addiction of cheap goods from China. It's so funny because I think a lot of us obviously think we're buying too much crap on Amazon. I mean, like, that's like a normal thing for a normal person to think, right? Like, it's not like people aren't willing to rethink how they consume. You'll hear these Democrats being like, oh, well, I hope you liked your champagne from France, because that's not coming anymore. And it's like, who do you think is drinking that? You know what I mean? Like, just like a fundamental inability to understand the kinds of sacrifices that working class people who have a lot less than the rich are willing to make to live in thriving neighborhoods with thriving neighbors who have access to the American dream. And, that's kind of the long and the short of it. So I think that, I think there will be a lot of countries that come to the table. We already saw Israel, Vietnam saying, okay, fine, we're willing to go to tariff zero. The big question is whether Peter Navarro is going to win this fight. He wants to keep that 10% tariff on every country because he thinks that it's going to generate a lot of income and wealth for this country. I think after the tax cut, there will be a lot less pressure on that side of the argument after the reconciliation bill is passed. And then maybe, there will be even better negotiations. The tariffs as a generator of income was never very central to how President Trump saw tariffs throughout his life, which he's been very consistent on. It was much more about he can't stand when the U.S. is the patsy of the rest of the world. I mean, that's sort of like the long and the short of it. Like, he thinks it's undignified, and he thinks that it comes at the expense of the hardest working Americans. Like, this international global order, like, weighing on the backs of the hardest working Americans. He hates that. And so I think he would be very happy just to see, reciprocal tariffs, to see a bunch of these countries come down to, much lower tariffs. China, I think, is in a different, just a different category than the rest of these countries. So he sees China as a threat, both in terms of our economy domestically and also in terms of foreign policy. So I think that what happens with China will be very different than what we see with certainly other allies. And then, of course, the Canada and Mexico thing, this is the thing that people really didn't understand. The reason that we had to put tariffs on Canada is because Canada and Mexico are a backdoor into the U.S. economy because of the USMCA. So what happened was, Trump slapped these great tariffs on China in his first term. And so China just built auto manufacturing plants in Mexico, right? And then the tariffs disappear. So I think what Trump wants to see out of Canada and Mexico is for them to match whatever we put on China and then call it a day.
And the more I read into this, and I just humbly went to community college in a cornfield in Iowa. But we're able to do pattern recognition on this program. We're able to read. We have the capacity to read and to listen. I got so angry. I got so angry looking at both parties selling us out. And this was a collusion between the Uniparty to destroy American manufacturing. They thought it was yucky. They thought it was dirty. They thought that they didn't like these people in the first place. They never voted for them, whether they were voting Democrat or Republican. And it made me angry. And then reading about the backdoor from Canada and Mexico, suddenly it all clicked. It makes perfect sense. Really understanding economics, you understand the whole world around you. It's really like a primary science. And it's been a fun practice for us. Where's the Democratic Party? Like, you were a former Democrat. So where's the Democratic Party after this exactly? Like, raging for the machine, like inside of the nursing home? Like, I see these protests, and it does look like it does look like activity hour in the nursing home. Like, they just let people out. Clip went viral of like people holding up signs against Elon on their walkers. It's not ageist or anything, but like come on. Like the future is for people who have the future is for people that are like living and creating families right now, right? There are people who've had their ride on the ride, and now there are people who are trying to fix what was broken. And it just doesn't look great, right? It just doesn't look like a really ripe or bright future for the Democrat Party. But what do I know? Batya, what do you think?
It's so amazing because they really bought their own hype. They became the party of the elites, but because they shut down and unfollowed and blocked anybody who didn't agree with them, they were sort of stewing in these bad ideas for 15 years without even realizing like how terrible they were because they got no pushback. It's really funny. And you have these guys on Twitter being like, nobody wants to work in manufacturing anymore. And it's like, this is who was setting our agenda. People who are too lazy to get off their butts and out from behind their computers and actually work for a living, saying, well, no one wants to clean toilets for a living when the majority of people who work in janitorial services are American citizens. How dare you talk about hard work that way? But now they can't make a living anymore because they're competing with teams that are staffed entirely by illegal immigrants. So it's like, it's so gross. Where they go from here, I think they have two opportunities. And I'm saying this because I really want to make sure that the Republican Party, thinks about this and inoculates itself against this. But healthcare is a really big one. When I was interviewing working class people across the country from both parties, what's amazing, I write about this in the book a lot, they agreed on like 90% of the issues. And Donald Trump represented where they were at. The vast majority of people I interviewed wanted much less immigration and much more access to affordable, high quality healthcare. So I think healthcare is something the Democrats have an opportunity with that's still a bit of a liability for Republicans. I think they should come up with a robust plan around that. The other one is that so the majority of the women that I interviewed, it was very interesting. I was not expecting this. And again, there was no difference between Republicans and Democrats. They would say to me, I would never get an abortion, but I don't support banning it because I wouldn't judge another woman who made a different decision. That's kind of where I think there's a radical tolerance in the American working class in general among the American people. We are the most tolerant, loving people on the planet. That tolerance for difficult decisions other women might make, I think that it could, if the wrong person in the Republican Party is the nominee in 2028 who doesn't understand that Trump neutralized abortion because he was so clearly, he kept saying, I'm like Reagan, I support the exceptions. And at another moment he said he supports, 12 weeks, 6 weeks, what have you. But he made it very clear that he would veto a national abortion ban. And I think especially if he makes this a great economy in 4 years where people have a little room to make decisions based on cultural issues, I think this could potentially be an opening for the Democrats. I don't think they'll take either of these opportunities, by the way. They're way too lost. And both of these involve not supporting Tren de Aragua, right? Like, which they seem fundamentally incapable of doing. So I think for now, things are pretty good. But I think it's really important that people understand how Trump nailed the middle, the moderate, tolerant middle, in order to protect that legacy.
If you go to school in the Midwest, like I did, the most popular thing that you will find in a high school is the shop class. To say that Americans don't want to work manufacturing, touch grass. Get out of your Upper East Side bubble. Like, get out of Palm Beach. In fact, get out of the Brickell, and go see. The shop class is the most popular. Half my high school was a shop class, effectively, to work on tractors and cars and large implements. This is and the men who want to do that, we need them. And so, yeah, from your mouth to God's ears, I really, really hope both parties are listening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody needs to go get this book, How the Elites Betrayed America, Working Men and Women. And everybody needs to go follow Batya. This is a critical time, and it's an important time to get the messaging right. And I can't think of anybody better, quite frankly, who's built a career off of fighting for the working man and woman. And we hope that you'll be back. This has been a really fun conversation. so many places I'd like to go, but here we are up against the time. So thank you for being here. Please come back
Thank you
soon.
so much, Benny. God bless you and all of your viewers. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had it was my daughter's 3rd birthday this weekend. That's how it goes when you're a parent. You're like sitting there. It seems like there's like a birthday or an event with the kids every single weekend. You're trying to like make sure that you're getting up early and you're still able to be productive, right? I want to be able to lock in with my kids, but I also want to be able to like hop up and do research so that we can explain these complicated issues to people and understand the science of the economy and like the way the world works. The coffee that powers us, that is right now on ice here. I am not drinking a beer, I promise you. Man, I don't drink any alcohol anymore. It's just not worth it, right? A hangover is not worth it. I do drink Blackout, man. I drink Blackout. Blackout is the hard work coffee of grit. Working men and women in this country. It's damn good coffee. It fills our cup, ladies and gentlemen, and we're proud to be partnering with them. Longtime partners. They're excellent employers here in the state of Florida. They're a small business. They're 100% American-owned. They employ a team of 30 hardworking Americans, and your purchase of Blackout coffee helps fuel this nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, please consider switching from Soviet, communist coffee that is abundant in this land to a coffee company that is far superior, far better, and has much stronger moral clarity on what's right and what's wrong. Blackout Coffee today, ladies and gentlemen. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout. That's blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Stop settling. Start drinking real coffee today. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We just heard the last guest talk about the border and how the border ties in perfectly into the selling out of America. It's amazing. You will always need workers. You will always need people that are willing to. You can't just have an entire country built on laptop class. If you had an entire country that everyone's laptop classer, right? People who sit here, I'm aware that I physically have a laptop here in the studio with me. So, as much as we like, actually that's not true. Killer Kleinesses. We go out and we do physical work at this company like daily. All right, we do plenty of physical work actually at this company, and I'm proud of that. We are out. We are getting dirty. We're like out in the arena, as they would say. But if you had an entire country that's simply laptop class people, you still need somebody to unclog the toilets. You still need somebody to empty the trash. You still need somebody to fix your vehicles. You're going to need people to pave your roads. It's not possible, in fact. And so this is what our elites learned. But they also learned something, that if they open our border and flood our country with people that are willing to work for pennies under the table, they not only avoid FICA taxes and the employment of like an American and paying into the systems that Americans use and support, but they also are able to pay a much lower wage. They're able to import their own slave class, which is what the open border was all about in the first place. It's literally about importing slaves back into America. Now, Democrats have always wanted to do this. They've done it in different forms, in different eras, right? There are different ways they've done this. This has always been something central to the Democrat Party. The insulting of the American worker, the dehumanization of the human worker themselves, and then the ripping off of the system. That's what the open border was actually about. And it ties in really nicely, put a little bow on it into this conversation, because Trump shutting that border down, then increasing tariffs, is building our own walls against this. It's all done for the protection of the American worker. That's why we're very excited about this moment in time. Ben Bergquam is the host of Law and Border on Real America's Voice. He is one of the top, if not the most accomplished border reporter in the nation. He's really put tread on the tires and dirt under the fingernails in his reporting, and he's just excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ben to the show. Ben, hey, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, brother.
This is a great shot, man. Where you at?
I'm on the border, the Arkansas border, border of Mexico. Because every state's a border state now. So I'm actually home for a couple
okay,
days.
got it. All right. I was gonna say, wait a minute, does Arkansas have a border with Mexico? I don't think so.
Every state has a border with Mexico now because of what the Democrats have done. So
it's beautiful, man. Hey, listen, like you could really be a host of a nature show, and I've always thought that for you, and I've enjoyed watching all of your reporting in these really tough to reach places out in the elements and on the southern border. We've on this program regularly seen it as the single greatest crime against humanity, the open border. You saw it at its worst. Tell me what you see today when you travel to the southern border.
Well, yeah, no, we saw 4 years of treason under Joe Biden, intentionally undermining our country. And it wasn't Joe Biden. It is a demographic that has been allowed to grow, a cancer in this country that's been allowed to grow for 50 plus years. This sanctuary supporting communists. It's really the same thing. It's the same people that we saw out protesting this Saturday that are protesting against getting rid of waste, fraud, abuse, all the cliches. The people that want more fraud. And what we find is these people are down there aiding and abetting the cartels. And so we saw 4 years of that. And I just spent another week down. I was in Mexico, in Sinaloa, where El Chapo came from. This is actually from Culiacan, this video right here. And at that corner where I'm walking up to right now was a human head just a week before I got there. So we went down to expose some of the cartel violence that controls Mexico. Basically, most Mexican cities, the citizens, the good citizens live in the guy that was killed by the Sinaloa cartel. There's a war that's going on right now. But basically, you have a country that's living with Stockholm syndrome, where you have the elites that control it. Many of the same elites are corrupted in America, are tied into what's happening in Sinaloa and across Mexico. And you have the cartels that basically just victimize their communities. So we had 4 years of the undermining of America. Now we are starting the restoration of America under President Trump, but we still have to show what's underpinning all of it. And the biggest threat to me right now are the judges in America and the politicians that are still paid off by the cartel that are working to undermine President Trump and his restoration policies and plans right now through Tom Homan and the rest of his administration.
Do you have any direct evidence that judges are being paid off by the cartels? I certainly wouldn't put it past them. I mean, we know that they paid off the Biden family, and we know that the Biden family was in direct business connections with the cartels. They were like a drug smuggling, human smuggling jobs program for the administration and for American elites. Joe Biden is the single largest human smuggler in world history, his administration. But do you have any are there direct connections between these judges that are now saying turn around terrorists and bring them back into the heartland of America?
Well, I don't think you need direct lines, although I think there will be. We'll find that. If I were in the administration, I'd be spending my entire time looking at the funding. It's just like what we have going on in Mexico. They cut off the heads of the cartels. Many of the cartels, they took out the leaders. The biggest thing that you have to go after now are the bankers. You need to track down the money, where the money is being laundered through and to, and then you'll find all of the connections that also go from Mexico up into the United States. But the judges themselves, there doesn't need to be a money trail directly to them. The fact that they are directly aiding and abetting the cartels through their policies. This judge right now, you're showing, trying to block President Trump from deporting illegals, sending them to El Salvador, while his daughter is getting paid to help NGOs in trafficking. I mean, this is, to me, first off, it's impeachable. These judges that are breaking their oath, that are going against the Constitution, that are undermining the presidential powers, I think that's impeachable on its own. But beyond that, to me, it's treason, what they've done. And this is the biggest problem we have right now. We're talking about a mass deportation that needs to happen. We had Joe Biden let in 10 to 15 million illegals, and the Democrats let in 10 to 15 million. And now President Trump and Tom Homan and Kristi Noem are trying to deport these illegals, and you have judges blocking that. And so whether or not there's a direct money line, now I would say they're more than likely, once we actually get the investigations into this, you'll find direct lines financial lines to these judges and to the politicians. I think of people like Veronica Escobar, whose husband is a judge, an immigration judge down in El Paso, Texas. I have no doubt we're going to find direct financial contributions from the cartels to these individuals. But whether or not they have, we even see that, we can see the pattern. You can see the fruits of their work. And the only other justification would be you just hate this country. And so regardless, these people need to be out of politics. They need to be out of the judiciary, because they're working to undermine this country. So, but again, I haven't done the investigations. I'm not in the Justice Department, but I would love to see Pam Bondi do that. I would love to see arrests actually start happening. I'd love to see Kash Patel and communications with Kash and his team, and I'd love to see those investigations start happening if they aren't already happening.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Norm Eisen, who has bankrolled all of the lawfare against President Trump, and of course continues, but Norm Eisen, who's openly opining about how he had a plan years ago to put Trump in prison forever, and he damn near succeeded, that he's close friends with Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, Chief Justice, and that they vacation together. They do working vacations and projects together in the palatial estates around the globe. And that's a little too close to come for me. It's like, hold on, you're a conservative justice doing this? It seems very, very strange, and it would really be interesting to have a full investigation into that. How about this? I wanted to play this quick clip of a criminal alien bragging this weekend at a Norm Eisen funded protest against President Trump, saying, hey, listen, I'm an illegal, and I'm definitely in defiance of RFK's health orders, that's for sure. But I'm also in defiance of American law. Here's what she had to say.
My name is Graisa Martinez Rosas. I am an immigrant. I am undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed.
So it's bold strategy, Cotton. Is it going to pay off for her, Ben?
Well, it's been going on for over a decade. You know, I used to live in California, and the sanctuary policy there has protected illegals for decades. And in sanctuary communities across America, that's what you have, that line, undocumented and unafraid. You're an illegal alien. You're a criminal illegal alien. You're breaking our laws. And again, going back to Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, when you hear that, I would have ICE officers out at every one of these places and picking them up and deporting them immediately. The biggest problem we have right now is ERO. You have two branches of ICE. You have HSI and ERO, and we've got ERO agents that aren't wanting to process, and you've got judges that aren't willing to deport. And so you've got the system where you've got all of these really good guys that we've got in place now, like Tom Homan, trying to push back all of these illegals through this little tiny hole that's been created by Democrats that makes it really, really difficult to. So their primary focus right now are going after the really, really bad guys. You know, the term is the worst go first. And so they're going after the MS-13s, the Tren de Aragua guys, all of these guys that have raped and murdered and committed additional crimes. And so you have people like this, check every box DEI illegal who is unafraid and goes out there and taunts it to the American people. I think she should. I think she should be picked up today, and I think she should be deported tomorrow. But unfortunately, that's not how our system works right now. But I think that's what we're going to have to start seeing. These examples, these people like this are made examples of. And I think that's really what the American people want to see. The average American person who voted for President Trump that wants mass deportations sees somebody like that spitting in the face of the American people, spitting on our flag, spitting on our Constitution, and they want to see that person gone. And I'm right there with them.
I mean, you have to make examples at some point. Like you can't, you don't have a functional system if somebody can, well, I mean, keep it, whether it's a parking meter, and just keep parking at at meters and not paying the fee, then everyone will do it. If one person gets away with it, this is why you have parking enforcement. This is why you boot cars. This is why you have pink tickets sitting on windshields, because if one person gets away with it, no one will ever pay the meter ever again. If you commit murder and you get away with it, then it's very, very, very bad for the rest of society. You have to see people have consequences. So, I would love to see it. You can't keep having individuals spit in the face of our system because all criminal aliens have committed crimes. That's why we call them criminal aliens. So they deserve to all go home. Will the administration be able to do it, Ben? I mean, this is my final question to you. Do we even have a country if every single deportation needs to be adjudicated inside of a court? Then clearly, not only do you not have a country, but you don't even have a president, actually.
Yeah. Well, this gets to the deeper question of our country. I say we're in post-constitutional America. You don't have equal protection under the law. You look where illegals are giving special protection in certain geographics and certain demographics and certain cities and towns and municipalities across America. That is an unsustainable system. And that's what we're in right now. And you look at the protests across America this weekend that are protesting for more communism, less America, less freedom, more freedoms for illegals. And you have a media that has been behind them. Now, this is the contrast or the between what I saw in President Trump's first 4 years and what I see in these 4 years that we're in right now. The media, basically the entire media apparatus, both social media and mainstream classical media, was behind the undermining of President Trump, was in support of the treatment that we saw against President Trump the first 4 years. Now that has changed. You have people like Elon, you have social media that's come out, even to the point of Mark Zuckerberg, that have realized that they're on the wrong side of this. You have mainstream media now. We're becoming the mainstream media, Real America's Voice, other outlets like yourself that are becoming the voice of America, that are challenging the mainstream media. But you look at what Tom's doing and you look at what President Trump's doing when it comes to deportations. They are fighting more right now than they did in the first 4 years in total that I saw. But they're also, I think, watching the response by the American people. There has to be enough Americans. We have to have that critical mass of Americans that are willing to stand up and say, yes, we support your actions. We support what you're doing, to the point where they feel empowered to be able to continue to do it, where they're not losing political capital. And unfortunately, that's the place that we're at right now, where it really doesn't come down to what's in the Constitution, what's our rule of law say. It's what does the popular voice of America say. And I think we're at that point. We're at that divide. We're right now in the middle of a civil war. We've seen that for the last 8 years. We saw it for the first 4 years under President Trump, and then 4 years under Joe Biden. You see these traitors, these communists that are out there in the streets right now that are trying to burn down America. That's going to get worse. It's our job as the people that love this country, that love the Constitution, that love our founding, that love the history of this nation, that realize the blessing that we are to the world. It's our job to stand up against them, to stand in the gap for this time in history. And I think that really, to answer your question, it really comes down to that. Will we stand in the gap? I know you will. I know I will. And I believe the audience that are watching this will as well. And that's my prayer for America.
We know that Ben has stood in the gap because we've watched Ben actually stand in one of the most dangerous places on earth, which is right next to Joy Reid, and to troll her for her Trump hair. This is cultural appropriation. We all know it. And I think it's Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know exactly why. I don't know Joy Reid, but I love how you were also cock-blocked there by is that John? Is that Alan? I'm not sure.
I don't even know who the guy was.
But you were asking her why she stole Trump's haircut. Yeah. And she didn't have a good answer for you. And then right months after this clip, then she gets fired.
Yeah.
From MSNBC and changes her haircut. So I just want to brag on my friend Ben here.
Hey, if I can say one more thing.
Just want to say thanks for this result. If you ever don't think that your life matters, consider Ben Berkwam and that he was able to troll Joy Reid into changing her haircut and then getting fired. So good for you, man.
Love it, brother. Thank you. Hey, one other thing. I will take that. I love seeing Joy Reid meltdown, anyone with Trump derangement syndrome. But I also did one other thing. I read Adam Schiff his Miranda rights about 4 years ago, and I want to see that day. I want to see the day when Adam Schiff has his hands behind his back in cuffs and has walked in. I told him I was the first one to read him his rights. I want to see it happen, and that's my request to Pam Bondi. Make it happen.
Okay, yes. Let's see, right? Let's see. We're doing our best to be patient around here. Ben, we thank you. You don't have to be patient with Ben. You just follow him right now. Hundreds of thousands of people already do. 265,000 Americans follow Ben. You should certainly be one of them. Godspeed, man. You're the best, dude.
God bless you, brother.
We do the work. We go out and we do the work, ladies and gentlemen. I want to cover very quickly doing the work because I know there's a lot of people, and I read the comment section. We love you, and we know you love us back. I read the comment section, a lot of people who are blackpilling on Pam Bondi and on Kash Patel and Bongino, right? And I wanted to just cover this because Dan Bongino put out what I thought was a very powerful, poignant, important, transparent commentary this weekend that kind of gets to the heart of how things operate in Washington, D.C. And I've worked in D.C. for 15 years. I am aware of how the city operates and what a superstructure that is for Democrats and what a massive uphill battle it is to win there as a Republican. It's actually an insurance policy for the deep state to be inside of such a Democrat-controlled super city and superstructure. It makes reform virtually impossible. You are beyond the gates of Mordor, right? You are there, inside of the volcano. You know, it's like truly enemy territory. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were catching hell for various hires. I certainly have leveled constructive criticism against the FBI for the retaining of Elvis Chan, one of the individuals who were key in censoring all of us. And I think that is an important moment for the friends. I am Kash Patel. I consider him a dear friend. Dan Bongino, I consider a mentor. Dan Bongino has helped us out in our program a lot. Advice, right? The landscape, right, of the media ecosystem. Dan's always been there to pick up the call. And so what's the point? The point is that it's constructive criticism. We want to simply surface some of the frustrations, and it's dishonest to say that these guys are perfect. No man is perfect. Iron sharpens iron. What turns good men into great men is the ability to hear criticism and then act on it, especially when the criticism comes from a good place. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without getting too far into it, there was a hire at the FBI that was apparently a J6, operative. New York Times was running what has been now called fake news, that a Stephen J. Jensen, who was in charge of the Bureau's domestic terrorism operations section that day, played a key role in responding to the attack on the Capitol. ALX, I need something, I'm not, prima facie, I'm going to have to do more research into Stephen J. Jensen, because there are two very distinct camps here, and that's not what the show's about. The show's about the tariffs and the economy. But I need a little more research on the Stephen J. Jensen. Okay? I know that Elvis Chan, the guy who censored us and who censored our show, is still working at the FBI. So I'd very much like to see some heads roll. Stephen J. Jensen was just promoted. Some people are saying that he worked, hand in glove with the Fedsurrection and the people that were there to destroy the lives of innocent J6ers. If in fact he did that, then I'm not going to be persuaded that he should get a promotion. I'm going to only be persuaded that he should be in prison and charged the violation against the civil liberties of his fellow Americans. Here's what Bongino had to say in the face of this criticism. I think it's instructive and worth reading. Headed back to D.C. today after spending some time with my wife and daughter. As I drive back to work, I want to reassure you that nothing that is happening here is happening by accident. Because of the sensitivity of what the FBI deals with, both the director and I have to be circumspect in what we can make public. Bad guys read this stuff too. Neither one of us came here to play games. Measure us by our results. You will see them. But just because you don't see something happening right this second doesn't mean it's not happening. I'll conclude by stating that not every result is going to please everyone. That's just pandering. It's not leadership. Complex problems require diligence and reform-oriented process to create lasting changes. Or else you're simply just putting a bandage on a gushing wound. Do it right. God bless America and those who defend her. This post went viral. 4 million views, 22,000 reposts, 117,000 likes. Good. Bongino followed up by adding this, because some of the immediate criticisms of this post was, hey, Stephen J. Jensen is somebody who is a January 6th Stasi government agent. And I'm not going to absolve them of that right now. I'm telling you that I've seen both camps. One camp saying no, he's fine, and one camp saying no, he was part of the Fedsurrection and the destruction of our fellow American citizens. You know exactly where I stand on that. I'm just going to read you Bongino's words. And I'm going to we'll do an entire show on Stephen J. Jensen and what should happen to him. Okay, and I'll invite both competing camps on here to make their case. How about that? Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. I'd like to add this. Your comments and criticisms are not only welcome, says Bongino, they're helpful. We work for you, the American people. Your feedback is invaluable. All I ask is that you consider the following feedback to your feedback. When you see something happen and the entire story isn't public, the underlying facts are not all public, it may appear counterintuitive to the reform agenda. I promise you it's not an accident. Ask yourself, why would I sign onto something like this otherwise? Is it a desire to be wealthy, famous, or connected, or to be a future lobbyist? That's ridiculous. Dan Bongino is already wealthy and famous. He's already as connected as you possibly can be in this profession, and he doesn't want to be a lobbyist. So I know that as a matter of fact. I realized when I signed up that I'd never be able to fully explain some of the decisions that we make due to legal and ethical constraints. But that's a pill I was willing to swallow when I swore in. In conclusion, I realized that asking you to trust me is a waste of time. Watch what happens, continue to demand results, be cautious of narrative traps, let time put the puzzle pieces together, and what we're doing will make sense. I see and hear you and your feedback. Thank you for your time. Here's one interesting element to this. Now, I'm upset at this guy named Elvis Chan, who's a little goblin out of San Francisco who works for the FBI, and he still works for the FBI, and he was absolutely central in the censorship of my show, people on the deplatforming of individuals who work with us, like ALX, and I'll be upset about that for the rest of my life. I want that cartel to be destroyed, and I want them to be imprisoned. On this Elvis Chan question, we did a show, and we asked about it. And we've been pushing on it. And lo and behold, it was explained to us that individuals at the FBI who are fired are not compelled to testify, give up their bosses. They don't have the same power to subpoena these people as private citizens to get to the absolute heart of what was going on. Like a good example is James Comey, who deserved to be fired, of course. But then when he's a private citizen, there's less that you can do to him than when he's inside of the cogs of the machine. The cogs of the machine can grind very, very brutally against people that are currently inside of the machine. Once you're outside, you have all these protections. And so on the Elvis Chan question, it's like, yes, I'm angry about it. Yes, I'll always be angry about it. This is my profession. This is my business. This goblin tried to destroy us all. But there are, to the point of what Bongino's saying there, there might be a reason that I don't understand to keep Elvis Chan working at the FBI. There might be something happening behind the scenes. Not every firing is a public firing. Not every demotion is public. Not like internal actions don't get made public. Internal battles and fights that are happening, especially on classified levels like this, like the rigging of the 2020 election, which is really what Elvis Chan did. This kind of stuff could be done better from within the FBI than from without if he's a private citizen. So I just want to explain like my humbling, right? And me potentially like having the wrong instinct on some of this stuff. We did an entire show last week about this. And so here's me sort of like doing my best to kind of say, okay, maybe I didn't understand the full picture. That's all Bongino's asking there. Like, wait, sit back and see the puzzle pieces come together. and judge us by our actions, judge us by our results, right? And prima facie, dude, it's just refreshing to have somebody who speaks to us like this. It's just nice to have someone who can talk to us to our faces and tell us what's going on. All right. I hope that you don't see my face late at night. You want to know why? Because it scares my kids. Let me explain. Bond Charge. Bond Charge sent me this mask. It's this thing that I'm now become addicted to. It is this red infrared mask. Red infrared mask. It's this mask that makes my face glow red. It's kind of scary. It looks like a Halloween mask, okay? So while I wouldn't advise wearing it around your children, I would advise wearing it for your health. Bond Charge is a holistic wellness brand. It has sort of this sauna effect, but also this healing effect. It feels great. It feels euphoric to have this red light. Honestly, I spent all my days inside of this studio. I barely get to see sun. Klein, like we come in sometimes before the sun rises and we leave when the sun's already down. Okay, that's just how it works. Man, I'm telling you, this like infrared sauna mask, this Bond Charge mask, I do like 10 to 20 minutes a day on this thing. It's really easy to use. It helps with relaxation. It helps with me to like chill out. Helps with razor burns, which I often get because I still use the cheap $1 razors that I've been using for 20 years. And ladies and gentlemen, it helps with me just like getting locked in and relaxed, ready for bed. I cannot encourage you to consider this enough. Nobody's got room for a sauna. I don't have room for a sauna, right? But this is like something that is so easy. It's so good. And I legitimately, truly believe in it. I've seen it work. Pretty remarkable effects on my family. Since using the red light face mask from Bond Charge, better looking skin, and just a better like vibe. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny. Use the coupon code Benny to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use the coupon code Benny. Save 15%. Do it today. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. They're not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease or condition. Just make you feel better. What made us feel better was getting out and shaking it up this weekend. Man, we were able to rock and roll with Byron Donalds and Forgiato Blow at a Tesla protest. It was really good fun. We have a big project coming up on this. We're going to be editing it. You just play the clip as I play beside. Byron and Forgiato, Forgiato is a rapper. And there was this really pathetic, like 12-person Tesla protest. Byron's running for governor. Super dope. And this Cybertruck this was a pretty car. This was a very pretty car. So we have like a banger coming out on this. It's going to be a rap video, man. It's going to be really cool. And it was really neat to like actually go out and see how broken the left's brain is. I think this is Colden's first time on the program. Colden is a brand new member. I'm very excited to have him on our videography team. He's an absolute artist. Here's Colden filming, and then Killer Klein. I know you're in one of these. There you go. There's Killer Klein getting it. You'll expect some a lot of like poppy content from this. But it's really neat to see somebody that's willing to like go out and like actually face down the people who hate him, right? And it's it's masculine energy. I'm a massive fan of Byron, and I'm a big time believer in showing up. And if you're gonna talk smack, do it to my face, right? So that's what we did this weekend. It was a blast, and we just want to say thank you to everybody for promoting and reposting. This was a really great shot. Look at this. I'm telling you, we're investing in this company. Brand new tech. We're excited about it, ladies and gentlemen. We're very excited to be your front row seat to the golden era. And we're going to win. There's a lot of changes that are happening. There are changes that we knew would happen. We're excited about it, and you got to just have you just got to lock in and have the correct vision. It is the correct vision, by the way, to want to leave a country and a land better for your children than you found it. I'm not sure that you can say every American generation has done this for their children. I'm not sure if the country is better than it was 60, 70 years ago. I don't think it is. I think there's a considerable amount of data to actually show that. But we got to lock in, because that is a spiritual question, as a scriptural question. That's why we always cement our show, bookend our show with scriptures, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that we have our heads screwed on straight from James 1, 2, and 3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. I love that verse. There are trials. There's short-term pain going on right now. I'm not here to say that we should light all of capitalism on fire and then it's great that you're losing money. No. Here's a good example. I want to be in shape. I have been a fat slob. Not exactly fat. Well, dude, doughy. You do this business and you sitting in a dark studio all day. You eat junk food and you turn into a slob. A lot of people do. Don't need to name names, but I don't want that for my kids. I want to be able to bend over and pick up my kids. So I'm doing my best in my own humble little way to try and be in shape so I can be a good father. And that requires pain. All good things in life require pain. All change in life, especially positive change, requires pain. And that's the core of this verse. When you're in trials, you're growing, you're maturing. You're tearing down the old and you're creating stronger defenses, more wisdom. Wisdom is not something that can be attained without experience. You must go through the fire in order to have wisdom. People can have high IQ and they can be the dumbest people on earth. We've seen that actually with our current economy. Wisdom is going through the fire. It's learned, all right? It's not born with it. So, ladies and gentlemen, consider it joy that we face trials, and I think that we have a very, very bright future through the fire. It's your boy, Benny. Thank you for watching. See ya.
I need you to know me. So, back to it. I'm just getting started.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.